does financial freedom mean to you? Freedom to travel, financial freedom, freedom to live the life you want. Today, my guests and I will talk about realistic and accessible ways to help you travel. Alex, what does FIRE, you say achieving FIRE in 2020, what does FIRE mean?
FIRE is an acronym that stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And there's this online community that is really tied into living intentionally and living out those ideals. So FIRE was something we gravitated toward very, very much.
For those of you new to Inspire Travels with Patti, I'm Patti Hunt, and I created this channel to inspire you to live life fully. For me, that is through travel. And it's not just about the destination, it's about the people you meet, the experiences you have, and the places you get to see. And that could be around the world or in your local area. So travel is a broad term in my definition. I want to introduce you to Alex and Jackie. They are in 2020, they achieved what's called FIRE. They retired early, sold everything, and moved aboard a sailboat where they lived for 3 years. They then traded the boat for an RV and began exploring by land. They first started in a fifth wheel and then later in a truck camper. They have seen and done so many amazing things across the US, Mexico, and Alaska, and that could be a whole show on its own. Today, we are going to focus on the financial side of travel. Now, while they were traveling, they craved a better way to stay connected to friends and family, so they created Hi, a new way to send the modern version of a greeting card using your phone. Welcome, Alex and Jackie, to Inspire Travels with Patti.
Thanks, Patti. We're so excited to be here.
Let's start with your background. At a young age, you told me the story. I want my listeners to get a feel for you guys. You both were in the corporate world. So let's start there. And then how did you transition into deciding that financial freedom and travel was for you?
We had fairly typical corporate jobs. Jackie was in marketing and advertising, and I've had a couple different jobs across different industries. But the dream came from reading about people who had sold everything and moved on a sailboat. And that, as a boy from the Midwest, for some reason hooked me. And I thought that sounds like a really cool way to live. So the seed of the idea was planted there for me. And it just sort of grew. This was before YouTube and before, I think blogs were kind of one of the main ways to get recent information as people were starting to do this and live this life. But I had read up everything I could on people who were doing this and soaked it up like a sponge and took it to Jackie as an idea, a crazy idea, to say, what if someday we figure out how to live on a boat?
And I was like, what? I don't know about that. But slowly over time, he kind of talked me into it. We went on a couple vacations on sailboats. I could kind of see what that life would be like. And really the biggest carrot was, hey, I think that we're in a position that if we buckle down and we really focus on our finances and saving and investing, we could retire early. And that would mean by 40, you wouldn't have to work anymore. And that, along with what I had experienced on those boat vacations, helped me adopt the dream, and it really became about working together toward that goal.
And again, I think talking about living on a sailboat for 3 years is a whole great episode, and I'll have to have you back on to talk about that. But I do want to focus on the financial side of it that allowed you to travel. And I also want to let my listeners know, no matter where you are financially, you could still have experiences, get out and travel. So no worries feeling like, oh, I missed that boat, because I feel that way sometimes.
Yeah, and we talk a lot with a lot of friends and family, and their dream is not our dream. They may be motivated to live intentionally and pursue FIRE or invest, use their money wisely, but for a different outcome than us, and that's totally great. We just want people to use money as a tool to achieve the life they want to live.
Okay, so we talked about fire in the beginning. You said what it means. Can you give me a little more? I could hear your inspiration. Your inspiration was to get on that boat, but
Yeah.
tell us a little more about this. Financial independence, retire early is what it stands for. So talk more about that.
The basic concept is to live below your means so that you can increase your invested assets enough that you can live off those investments. That's it in a nutshell, whether that's real estate or stocks. But the core concepts of fire are really understanding your expenses and keeping those lower as a percentage of your income so that you can increase your net worth. Hopefully, I haven't said too many financial terms, but the idea is spend less than you make, and so then you can live off your investments.
And you were inspired by a book
Yes,
specifically.
that's right. There was a book called Your Money or Your Life, and that was a book that I read about the time I was reading about sailing and understanding how we could potentially live that life. But that book was the seed that became the way we wanted to change we lived, and really inspired fire living for us.
Tell us more about this plan. First of all, you wanted the financial freedom so you could have experiences. That was what was more important, correct? So let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's right. I was inspired by a Mary Oliver quote that goes something like, "Tell me what it is you plan to do with this one wild and precious life that you have." And so that was sort of the intentional side of like, we have one life, let's be intentional about how we want to live it. And that we paired that with this financial plan that would enable us to do that. So you're right. It was more about experiences than things. We were never really big on, having the newest car or having the biggest house. Certainly that mentality pairs well with fire. But it was sort of the pair of let's save money and let's invest in order to allow us to live the way we want to live as inspiration for that quote. And so in 2012, we went on a sailing vacation. That's really what kind of kicked everything off. And maybe even on that trip, we sat there looking out at the water and, sort of the dream was born. And we said, for 10 years, let's just work really hard and make good financial choices and invest what we can. And let's see where we are in 10 years. And if that means that we can retire early and head off on the adventure, let's do it.
If you were going to give the one first tip to my listeners, what would that first thing be? Because for everybody, it's not necessarily about travel. Obviously, it is for us. So, what would be that first tip that you could give?
Yeah, it's hard to think of advice probably that applies to everyone, but I think step one for everyone should be start tracking your expenses. And you don't have to be one of those people who budget ahead of time and know where every penny is going to go. But I think knowing where you spend your money has to be step one, so you know how much you would need if you wanted to retire. And also it just helps you understand where your money's going so you can be smart about the way you spend your money.
Yeah, tracking it really allows you to see like what am I spending money on? And maybe if at the end of the month you see that you spend way too much money on eating out, or you should cancel XYZ subscription, because when you see it all added up, it feels like too much. I think that's the first step in making some of those choices.
And I think for a lot of people, and I'll speak for myself, when I was younger, that felt like I was denying something. And it seems like for you guys, really focusing on what you wanted. So there was this, hey, we could travel, we could go out on this sailboat. For you, it was about a sailboat. But for other people, it could be anything. It could be travel. It could be buying the bigger home or the car, whatever they want to do. So I do want to say we're not financial experts in any way, shape, or form. If I have to give that disclaimer, I'm giving that here. I think it's pretty obvious, but just some good tips. And to some degree, most people know, if I'm going out to eat all the time, and at the end of the month, I'm spending way more than I realized, then, thinking about that trip to wherever it is I want to go. I want to go everywhere. It makes it feel unattainable.
Yeah, I think it's also important to mention, kind of like what you said, the goal is not to spend zero money. The goal is to spend money on the things that are the most important to you. and tracking where you're spending your money and analyzing what's important to you, you can really marry the two so that you can live intentionally and spend your money really smartly.
Yeah, so our the things that are important to us might not be the things that are important to somebody else, and that's really the beauty of it. Is there were things that we were like, we're going to spend money to go on small vacations every year to get us through this corporate living, right? It wasn't about buckling down 100% and not enjoying our life.
Right.
It was just about being mindful of our spending.
That's great to know because you said, let's take the next 10 years. And part of me went, oh my goodness, you're going to spend 10 years denying yourself everything that you want, all the fun and the joy, but you didn't. So it sounds like a lot of communication happened, first of all, between the two of you. You set
Yes.
goals, you decided what was important for you, but you enjoyed it along the journey, right?
Yes, exactly
We
right.
definitely went out to eat and had nice dinners and would enjoy cocktails out, or sometimes you can, if you only focus on what you spend, you can deny yourselves those experiences. And we felt like those were just as valuable experiences as the ones we were saving for in the future. So it was just about figuring out the right balance for us.
And being on the same page about that, to your
Yeah.
point, is important. If one person finds the car to be more important than the eating out and you're not on the same page about that, that would be difficult. But we tended to enjoy the things we spent our money on were the things that we jointly
Yeah.
enjoyed. And so it worked out.
Is there something here that you guys would suggest for people that I'm not thinking of, having been in a young age, making this decision, this idea of achieving what's called FIRE in 2020? Now, you said you're giving yourself 10 years, but it happened in 8, right?
That's right.
So talk a little bit about that. Talk a little more about that process for those of us. Well, go ahead. Talk a little bit about that process.
At the beginning of the process in 2012, when we set out for this lofty goal, we really had no idea what the right timeline was going to be. I think we had hoped 10 years, probably expected it to take more than 10 years, but we had successful careers and we found ways to save money, and we got to the number. In FIRE, a lot of people have a number that they work toward. We got to our number faster than we anticipated. And to be honest, we really enjoyed our jobs. We weren't running away from work, and it was a really tough decision to say, should we go now in 2020 or not? And it just felt like the right time. So we had lots of conversations over dinner or drinks about when that would be or how that might play out. And really, I wouldn't say antagonized over that decision, but thought a lot about how to do that appropriately and in ways that we would not regret down the road. And just that's the way we went through it. We went through it together and talked through it, and like you said, ended up being less than 10 years, and that was just a pleasant surprise.
I think there's a couple tips, maybe. I don't even know if tips is the right word. We did have our age on our side. We were in our late 20s at that point. And so any financial person will probably tell you the sooner you start, the better, because compounding interest and the time is on your side. But a financial person would probably also tell you it's never too late to start.
Yeah.
So those are two things that I want to say is we did have that on our side, and that probably worked in our favor when it came to retiring before 40, but that doesn't mean you can't ever start. The other thing that was important for us, we were tracking our expenses, and that is how we got to that quote number. But that number isn't, if you do the math, you might find that number isn't as scary as you might think it is. Again, depending on how you live your life. We weren't looking to work longer in order to have more money. We really tried to get to what is the amount that we think we can live on modestly, not in a crazy spendful way for the rest of our lives, but it was more important to us to go sooner, take the leap and craft the intentional life, because we don't know how long we have on this earth, than it was to say, oh, we're going to be rich later in life, and that means that we'll wait longer. So I don't know how helpful that is, but those were sort of important tidbits for me to realize that we had time on our side and we didn't have to get to this crazy number necessarily if we could get on board with living modestly and continuing our lifestyle in the same way.
I think those are amazing tips because, again, my audience varies from 20s into their 60s, maybe older. I'm surprised at the variety of age. So I think that hits everybody. Sure, start as soon as possible, but it's never too late. And I need to hear that. Helpful. So,
Yeah.
okay, then you decided to go on a boat for 3 years. And when you went on the boat and then in the RV, and you travel in an RV now, either the fifth wheel or the truck camper, you're not constantly thinking about money because you have that kind of planned out. I know you have a social media presence, and I'll let people know, and I'll put it in the show notes. They can find you on Instagram. I think you're also on Facebook, and you have a YouTube channel. But you never went into that with the pressure of, oh my goodness, need to make money while we're on the road. Those things are already set. So, what was your reason for social media and the YouTube channel?
When we first left, we created the social media channel simply for friends and family to be able to follow our journey. It's a little odd to sell everything that you own and move on a sailboat, and so a lot of people were intrigued by that lifestyle choice.
Especially our family from Missouri. They had no real understanding of what it would be like to live on a sailboat. So it was a great way for them to see what our life was going to be like.
Yeah, so it was about like sharing our life and making sure friends and family could experience that through us, kind of like a digital journal. That's really what it was about. We did get a small following of people that were interested. You know, it was during COVID, so I think there was this avenue of vicariously living through us a little bit, but it truly started as a way to just share our experiences with friends and family, and never really was a monetization thing for us. But the interesting thing about fire in general is that it sort of creates space in your life. And so by quitting our jobs and being retired, you will often hear lots of people have gone through fire say, it wasn't to never work again. It was just to choose what I wanted to work on or have space to find the thing that becomes my passion. And so our social media posting increased a little bit, and it was fun to make videos, and Alex edited a few things to put them on YouTube, and it was kind of just a fun thing to do with the time that we had.
And I will say I've stalked your social media, I've stalked your YouTube channel, and you could see the fun in it. And this is what I tell people that get out on the road and then they're trying to figure out how to monetize, how to make money. Having been on the road for 3 years in an RV, didn't have the best financial plan, I'll be honest. So now there's pressure to make social media or YouTube channel or even a podcast work. And that pressure never works. So just my own 2 cents on this. But you have a lot of incredible content for people who are looking to travel the US, Alaska, Mexico. I loved your videos on going into Mexico. You were so scared.
I was so nervous. So many people had said, are you sure you want to go to Mexico? We were confident. And then you start to get people questioning, and then you start to say, well, are we sure?
Should we be
We're
more
going to get arrested. It was fun.
And I find it fun to document that, not only for us to remember how we felt, but to share that experience with others. Maybe people can't travel, or maybe they're not comfortable going to Mexico, but so many people have messaged us and said, thank you for sharing that with me and opening my eyes to that, or letting me see what it was like to camp on the beach, or whatever the thing is. It's as much for our friends and family as it is now for the community of people that we've gotten close with over the years that appreciate just seeing new things.
Yes, and I think it is a great way to show people what's possible and what's out there. And I think you guys are incredibly inspiring. Now, at some point, and I think it was a few years ago, you decided you wanted to stay connected with friends and family, and you created Ojai. Let's talk about that.
Wonderful. So we had this idea. We had some family visiting us, and they needed to go buy a greeting card, but we were in a place where that was really difficult to do. And we just had this idea. Why isn't it easier? Or why isn't there an app? Or we didn't know about a great app that would make it easy to send a greeting card or the modern version of a greeting card from your phone. We had phones in our extremely powerful phones in our pockets, and it just didn't feel like there was a great solution for a modern way to do that. And so we started this idea and thought if we were to kind of make an attempt at what that might look like, if we wanted to build the app we wish we had, how would we do that? What would it have? And so for about a year, we just talked through what that would look like. And then I'm kind of the type that loves a challenge and thought, I'm just going to give it a whirl. And so I taught myself how to write the code for the app. And it just sort of turned into this thing where we never ran into a problem we couldn't solve. And so eventually we got to the place where we had a testable app and we thought, let's try it out. Let's see if people appreciate it the same way we do. And that's what Ojai has become.
And tell us, so the app allows you to send greeting cards through your phone.
Yes, what we call the modern version of a greeting card. It's 100% digital. They're not printed. They're not mailed. It's made on your phone, turned into a video that then you can send to anyone else with via text or via social media DM or email. And it's really just exactly what we wished we had, especially when we were on the boat, because there were times where we couldn't even go to shore to get a card.
Mail it or anything. Yeah, it really was born out of like, as we were traveling, especially on the boat, and we felt less connected to friends and family, we felt like it was difficult to have a meaningful connection over big life events, things that might have been hard for family or friends at home or really exciting for friends and family at home. We would try to send voice messages and, FaceTime when we could, but it just felt like there should be something that makes this really easy. That's not super cheesy, because some of that exists, but feels a lot more modern, is fast, is simple, is inexpensive. And we were very intentional about some of the decisions we made in creating the app around how we wanted people to access it. And we didn't want you to have to, download the app in order to receive it or get a weird link that said, Jackie sent you a card. And now you're questioning if Jackie really did send you a card, so the direct to person connection was really important. And there's a few other things in the way we set up the app and the account registration process and the subscription process and all of that. But it really was born out of what was important to us as users and what we wanted as travelers, in the hope that whether you're a traveler or you're just a busy person that can't make it to the store in time to get it in the mail, that it could be a solution for that.
That's awesome. And that's always, I think, when somebody's trying to create something, the best way. You find a need, find something that isn't working, that you could, a problem that you could solve, and go out and do it. The fact that you taught yourself how to create an app, I can't even fathom that.
Me neither.
Not in my want no parts of it.
No.
So that's incredible. And then there's no pressure that I've got to sell it. I've got to make money, because that pressure it's not a good feeling at all.
You're exactly right. It's as much of a passion project for us as an attempt to build a business. I get so much joy out of seeing other people use the app and send cards, and we get messages back from people that sent a card and got a wonderful message back, and like that's the reason why we're doing it. It's just to create that experience and connection between people.
And that is a great gift, a great, passion to have. I tell people that all the time. Whatever you're doing, make sure you love what you're doing. I used to say that when I was creating video content, creating podcasts, whatever I'm creating. I say to people, if I don't love what I'm doing, I don't do it. And some people that are so business oriented kind of have issues with that. It's not that I don't get those things done that I don't love doing. I just have somebody else do it. Like, I don't want to edit a podcast. Thank God for Jacob, my editor, producer. He could do all the stuff that I truly don't want to do. So I love that. Any last minute thoughts? First of all, I am going to let's lead people to your social media channel, your YouTube page, and they could also find Ojai if they're interested in the app. So where can they find you?
Well, social media, we're on Instagram and Facebook, as you said. Where is AJAX? We do have a YouTube channel, but we don't put a lot of effort into that. So I wouldn't encourage you to go check that out. Much more fun to follow Instagram or Facebook. Where is Ajax? And if you want to check out Ojai, it's Ojai Cards is the website, ojaicards.com. And we're also on Instagram or Facebook. We're available both for iPhone and Android under Ojai, OHHI.
And that's great to know, because sometimes getting on those iPhones are a little more difficult. So that, as an iPhone user, I'm going to check it out because it sounds really cool. I think the art of, greeting cards has shifted and changed, and this idea to be able to send that personal message just sounds like a great, new way to connect people. And that's, what it's all about. So I want to thank you guys so much for coming on and giving people some great tips. This is just the tip of an iceberg. This is a place to start. I love what you said. It's never too early and it's never too late. So I think that is a great message for people. Thank you so much for taking time and being on with me.
We enjoyed it.
It's been our pleasure. We love talking about this stuff, and any chance we can, like you, the mission to inspire people to live intentionally is something we get a lot of satisfaction out of. So we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you again. And people can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok now, thanks to my 27-year-old daughter. If you're listening on the podcast, you could see these two incredible people that really, are just excited and happy to share. So reach out to them if you have questions. And on that note, I want to leave my listeners with one last thought. Travel isn't just about where you go, it's about how you live. And I want to remind you to live each day to the fullest.